well, I voted for Trump because he's going to get rid of that communist Obamacare crap. All we need is the Affordable Care Act. That's it. We don't need no communist systems in this country. Obamacare is the Affordable Care Act. They're not different things. They're the same thing. It's the same bill. Well, why the fuck do they call it that? Why wouldn't they just call it the Affordable Care Act? Why do they call... See, that's your damn liberals always making different names for shit to get us confused. Republicans are literally the ones that started calling it that. It was the Affordable Care Act. You guys hated Obama, so you started calling it Obamacare. Oh, you know what? I just see right here on Facebook that Trump actually said that that's bullshit. You're lying to me. Well, all I can tell you is when Obamacare gets repealed and you can't go to the doctor anymore, so your teeth start to feel sensitive because you can't get to the dentist.
The Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, has sparked debates for years. Now, a new chapter is unfolding as some MAGA supporters navigate the realities of a system they once voted against. What happens when political choices meet real-life challenges? Let's explore the stories and reactions fueling the heated conversation.
I kind of feel like Democrats should start acting more like Republicans. When you've got the people complaining that the Affordable Care Act is going to be stripped under Mr. Cheeto Man, and they're like, wait, I just voted to get rid of Obamacare. We should just be like, it's the same thing. Well, you voted against it. Yeah, but I can't go to the doctor, and that's the only health care my grandma has. So, it's not my problem. Let your grandma die. I got great health care. I'm set. I think we need a little more of that. I don't know. It's not in my nature to be that way with anybody, but that's how they are about everything. I got mine. Fuck. So, I think that's just going to be my new MO. Maybe not as mean, but just like, oh well. I'm going to stop complaining about the level of stupid in this country because clearly there's enough of it here that it's breathtaking, but it's also a waste of breath probably in some senses. I'm not going to stop voting the way I vote. I'm not going to stop educating people when certain things come up. But
Obamacare is a disaster. And I said, we're gonna do something about it. I saved Obamacare when we got John McCain's negative vote. You know, he voted against it after campaigning for many, many years. He said, thumbs down.
Call me crazy, but why would you say that you saved Obamacare when you also claim it's a disaster? Isn't that welcoming in criticism? And also, you had no authority to save Obamacare, considering that you are not in the Senate. So how did you do it? Or do you just really not like winning or losing? I can't even remember which one you're wanting at this point. Y'all, Joe Biden is way more coherent than this man. Yes, he has a stutter and he speaks slowly, but at least he makes sense.
That before Obamacare, insurance companies used to be able to say, hey, that person can't have coverage.
One of the things I will always hark on is just how many lives President Obama saved with the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. I don't think a lot of people realize just how bad insurance companies were prior to the Affordable Care Act. Like she mentioned pre-existing conditions, you can have anemia and the insurance companies could be like, I don't think so. Like we talk about like this epidemic with obesity. That could be another reason why they say, you know what? I'm not going to insure you. Like, I don't think people realize just how bad the insurance companies were before President Obama and the Affordable Care Act said, like, y'all need to get that together.
So I was recently in the process of possibly donating one of my organs to someone who is MAGA. And as y'all know, I'm progressive, someone that I know, love, and care about, but haven't spoken to in many years is in desperate need of an organ. They are indeed MAGA. Many years ago, me and this individual, we did have an argument on social media about their support for MAGA, and I was blocked then, and many years later, I am still blocked. In early October, this individual began asking for donors, and the same day I heard is the same day that I filled out the application. After you fill out the application, you are then paired with a transplant nurse coordinator who kind of takes you through a process of elimination to see if you are a match. In the beginning of this process, I was very gung-ho about it. Like, my attitude was like, you need an organ, I got an organ, so I got you. But the more that I talked to the nurse and the more information that they were emailing me, it got very real. I started to realize that your body, mentally and physically, it takes a toll going through this living donor process. I started to be concerned about my finances. I started to worry about my recovery and hoping that it would go as planned. I started to worry about if there were complications, maybe long-term complications. Would it cover it? Even though I had second thoughts about the process, I was still leaning toward doing it. Now keep in mind, the recipient, I don't think that they ever knew that I was going through the process at all. I never spoke to them throughout this process. My plan was to drop my organ and just keep it moving. So now we come to the part of the process where I need to schedule my physicals, and this is where they determine whether or not I am a match. And it is 2 days worth of physicals where I will meet with surgeons. I'll do blood work, x-rays, EKG, MRI, CT scans. It's a lot. It's intense. And this is around the same time that Donald Trump wins this election. And so now I really start to second guess this whole process and whether I want to do it. With the way that Trump has already removed access to women's health care, with the way that in his previous term, his administration tried to repeal the ACA over 40 times, and he has promised to continue trying to dismantle the ACA in his current term. I do not know what insurance coverage will look like under a second Donald Trump term, and I am not at all confident that if I do go through this process and I, for whatever reason, experience complication, that I will get the medical treatment that I need and that it will be covered under insurance. As a result of that Donald Trump win, my concerns for my finances, for my health, my recovery, and my insurance skyrocketed. So as a result of that, on November 10th, I decided to remove myself from the living donor process. I just felt like it would be very dangerous for me to undergo any medical procedures at a time when our medical services are being taken away from us and our insurance is being dismantled by the incoming MAGA administration. This whole situation is extremely unfortunate, and I do love and care about the person needing the organ, and I really hope that they find a donor. The best of luck to them.
You know, at first I was like, oh, this again. But then I realized I haven't actually covered this on TikTok yet. Just an exhausting amount of in-person debates about it. There's basically two kinds of people that believe this. For a lot of people, I imagine it's just a genuine misunderstanding. They haven't really gone out of their way to look into and understand how the ACA affected the market. Then there's the people who would believe that Obamacare wiped out the dinosaurs and shot JFK and caused the Milli Vanilli track to skip if they heard it from Tucker Carlson. Now, in a very oversimplifying way, you could say that the ACA increased premiums. But there's several things that are conveniently deliberately left out about that. The first is that healthcare plans were forced to cover things that they didn't cover before. Things like pre-existing conditions, certain mental health and maternity essential benefits, as well as a cap on out-of-pocket spending, which is pretty important in a country where the average American is going to have about $400,000 in medical expenses throughout their life. It's also very convenient to leave out things that the ACA did to check those insurance premium increases, things like forcing insurance companies to factor younger, healthier people into their calculations. The ACA also implemented online exchanges for customers to be able to price shop and compare plans more easily, forcing more competition and less price fixing. Now, in 2015 and 2016, respectively, there was a 2% jump and then a 6% jump in insurance premiums nationwide. This caused a lot of people to freak out and say, look, Obamacare is jacking up premiums. That's exactly what we said would happen. Which is not factually untrue if all you're saying is that premiums went up, but it's conveniently leaving out that premiums go up every year anyway. And in the 3 years leading up to the implementation of the ACA, it increased 10% or more per year. So while premiums did go up with the ACA, the data seems to indicate that they would have gone up more without it. Now, obviously, as I covered in the other video, there are still a lot of serious issues with the American healthcare system. But the cold hard facts say that despite all of those issues, tens of millions of people's necks in the United States are only above water because of the ACA.
I'm confused, y'all. So JD Vance's parents got off of Medicare to get under private healthcare insurance under Donald Trump's leadership. Wasn't that Obamacare? Because Donald Trump didn't get rid of Obamacare. So you mean to tell me JD Vance just lied and said, oh, my family had Obamacare? Let's fact check that. Somebody fact check that.
I didn't realize how disconnected people were from how, like, the political machine works in America until I saw people, like, genuinely asking why Republicans would rebrand the Affordable Care Act as Obamacare. And there were so many Republicans sort of sitting here confused at the end of the election, like, I thought Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act were different things. The reason why they have two terms for the same policy is because Republicans understood that many people who disliked Obama, their dislike for him was not rooted in his policies. I'm not going to sit here and accuse people of certain ideologies, feelings, biases, but I will say Republicans understood that the root cause of that dislike had more to do with Obama as a person than it did with his policies. And they knew that because of blind focus groups. They test different policies with people to see which ones resonate the most. Typically, Democratic Party policies resonate the most. Once they are attached to a politician or a party, that's when you see a drop in support of those policies. It's kind of funny that in an era when Americans were patting themselves on the back and proclaiming we were in a post-racial society, Republicans were harnessing, in part, anti-Black sentiment to turn voters against their own best interest.
If Obamacare goes away, I do think we'll see a renaissance of sketchy, out-of-pocket doctors who'll give you whatever you want, so upside?